idea. I am not writing. I am recording this on Audacity. First, you have story idea. The story idea has to be fleshed out after approval. Then you have storyboarding, initial storyboarding of that story. You have the script written. You have the voice actors come in and record the script. Then the storyboards and the audio are sent to the animation studio where they spend 10 months working on these episodes. I'm not sure how long it takes to do one episode, but I can tell you it takes a long time. After it's been animated, it returns to the production studio where ADR is, what's a good word? Implemented? Recorded? ADR is recorded. It's kind of redundant. Additional dialogues are recorded. ADR is added and edited. And then all the pieces come together. The music, the sound, the audio, and the video into one piece. It doesn't take 2 weeks to make an episode. It takes a year or more. Okay, so you just recorded yourself saying that. So they had originally thought they were going to have Shiro for one season and then replace him as Black Paladin with Keith. But they had decided before they got to the end of the first season that they didn't want to get rid of him. They liked him too much. The executives at DreamWorks liked him too much. So they decided to keep him. You're talking about Joaquim Dos Santos, the biggest Shiro stan next to Josh Keaton that ever lived. I mean, we were talking about this last night. It was earlier today. We're talking about the end cards for the finale. And somebody made the joke that if they had been able to draw Joaquim in instead of Curtis, he would have done it in a second. And I said, oh yeah, and don't forget the baseball cap. I mean, he would have, you know this. I know. It's like, don't. Of course he wanted to give him the happiest ending. Oh my God. And right. People hate that because, oh my God, Polly. Ugh. So, well, and if you look, and somebody was like, oh, well, it was in the show Bible. It's like, it was also in the show Bible that Shiro was 18 years old, that he was a teenager. He wasn't a teenager. He was, yes. 5 teens. Go off on a space adventure. You're not picking up very well. That's why I'm repeating you. Go ahead. In a 10,000-year war. Right. Right. I know. Include. The video that started the age discord. What was the video that started that? So somebody asked Joaquin and Lauren in the video at a con how old the Paladins were. And they said the age was between 15 and 25. And that they weren't officially going to announce anything, but it ended up being in the Paladin Handbook. And the Paladin Handbook was not canon. You think that the handbook was? Oh, the age yeah.
It was getting so out of control.
Well, that's because people, you look, I mean, okay, and I will say this, and I have said this to you actually before, in that there are times where I have to look at Shiro and remember that he is 25 years old. Because he doesn't look like he's 25 years old. He looks like he's in his 30s. Because of the way that he's drawn. It's the hair, it's the body. He does not look like a 25-year-old. And then there are places in there where it's like, yeah, that's a kid. That's a 25-year-old kid. There's the blam, blam, blam. That's number one right there.
Also, need to include that initial directors being one where multiple characters such as Havoc, Zeta, and Shiro were wonky, and the animators because
Yes. The animators were still getting used to and we actually talked about that in, was it on Forum Podcast, I think? They were talking about that, about how the animation wasn't actually set strongly until I think it was the sound effects guys that were talking about it too, about how a lot of the sounds weren't standardized until like the third or fourth or fifth episode. Because the first episode, the movie, the three, the triple episode there, that was a group that was, I believe, that's kind of like their lead in. And okay, so I'm going to tell you a little story about Lois and Clark. Lois and Clark, the New Adventures of Superman, came out in 1993 and was filmed in Hollywood at the beginning of the summer. And it was 2 hours long, and they didn't know if the series was going to be picked up, so it was basically a pilot. Well, the series was picked up, and in between the movie being finished, which turned out to be the 2-part pilot, and the series, they lost the Superman suit, and they had to redesign it for the series. So things like that happen, where you have an entirely different executive, or not executive, but creative team on, say, a pilot, and the rest of the series is a different team. And they had that happen with Voltron, because they had one group that created what the look looked like in the first episode, and then every group after that had to match that as much as they could. So you have some really big discrepancies, especially with Sendak. Sendak got furry, and then he didn't get furry, and then he was tall, and then he was shorter, and then it was like all over the place. So yeah. Oh yeah, it was like 4 different people worked on it. The ships stayed the same. The lions obviously stayed the same. But some of the little pieces, the little animated stuff was different. Hunk stayed the same. Pidge stayed the same. Some of Keith, a little bit of his hair was different, I thought, from the first episode, and especially his skin tone. His skin tone in the first episodes was, if you look at it from a certain way, it looked kind of blue. He was pale, very pale, like blue pale. And you notice that the one that I noticed the most was actually in the cave with the blue lion, because you've got all five of them standing there, and he looks really lilac compared to the rest of them. And I thought it was an animation error, and it could have been the fact that he was part Galra, you know.
Also, this is like his original design.
Well, had him with white hair. Yeah, that he died, and then when they got on the castle ship, he supposedly stopped dyeing it and he turned white, and it was like, okay, wait a minute. So yeah, that was a big change. But when they first started working on the scripts, they went by the Bible that they had, which was Shiro was going to be around for one season. And by the time they got to the end of the first season, they're like, nope, we changed our minds. He's going to be around for longer than that. So that was a big deal. Um, they were also, you have to remember too that they're working on the premise. Yes, they have the old versions of Voltron. You have Go Lion, and you have Defender of the Universe, and you have Third Dimension, and you have Ultron Force. And in all of those, Keith is the leader. All of them. Even Go Lion and Defenders of the Universe that had Sven, or as he was originally, Takashi Shirogane. But he dies in the 6th episode of the series. So Keith is the leader and was the leader from the beginning. So they were trying to recreate that with Voltron Legendary Defender. But they discovered that they really liked Shiro. So they needed to keep him. So they had to figure out how to not kill him off, but also to get rid of him long enough for Keith to become the leader of the group. I never thought that they were going to. You have people that are all the time, oh, well, they were going to kill Shiro off. They all hated Shiro. Now, the reason that they've written him the way they have in the last 2 seasons is because they don't like him and they want to get rid of him. It's like, no. You have to understand that they lost their core writing staff, Tim Hedrick, and other writers at the end of season 6, at the end of production season 2. They also lost several of their directors. Eugene Lee was the only one, I believe, who stayed on after the rest of them departed. And so, and yeah, Steve Ahn was gone in season 5. Those people moved on to other projects. The thing is that you have to remember too that look at the time, again, production time. You're talking about Eugene Lee, who is still working on season 8 only a year ago. Steve Ahn has been away from the franchise for 2 years, but it was only last year that his episodes came out. And I know Steve Ahn's been working on other projects because I'm a backer for his Blossom detective show that he's trying to produce. And I don't know what Tim Hedrick is doing. He's writing something. I don't read Spider-Man. Marvel. I don't know. No, Fast and Furious. He's. Oh, yeah. Yeah, the Voltron 84. which Ryu did. Well, and if you look at the misinformation that we've been seeing from other parts of the fandom, they're saying that Tim was a Klance fan. I agree with you. I agree with you. I don't find anything that fits that agenda either. Or or how about the astral plane? The astral plane. Oh, look, there's a blue star and a red star. That must mean Klance. I was like, they did. They did that. No, no. They're the reason that we got season 8 in the condition that it's in. Okay. Because we knew we were going to get season 8. We just didn't realize it was going to be a dumpster fire. Okay. So, now what? Well, and from what I have, and I have not done this research myself. From what I have heard, one of the writers for season 7 was a script consultant. I mean, it was almost like, can you throw 2 words together? Here, write this script. And I really, for season 8, I will tell you, I enjoyed season 7. Season 7 had 2 very distinct pieces to it. You had the journey that the Paladins had to go through to get to Earth, and then you had what was going on Earth. There were, and I liked both of them. But all the action, because of all of the action, the characters suffered. The episode where we have, but there were some very good moments in season 7. For example, obviously, the entire first episode, A Little Adventure, which gave us tons of backstory for both Keith and Shiro. The second one was The Ruins, where we run into the druid. I thought that was impressive. Yeah. So So we have that episode, and then we have a couple pearls in the feud. I very much enjoyed the end of it where they all chose everybody else and why they chose everybody else. And Lance's reason for choosing Keith was because he felt he was the future. I thought that was like, mind-boggling to me. And then for Keith to turn around and say, I picked Lance to leave because he's the most homesick. Plus, I don't want to have to put up with him for eternity, which I thought was great. But people have assumed that Keith is a firebrand, and he's not. Keith is a marshmallow. He's a little charred on the outside, but he is a marshmallow. I'm sorry? He is. He cares so much. And that's his, and I want to go on a Keith tangent here. Keith is my favorite character. I've been a Keith stan since Defender of the Universe. And yes, the Keiths are different. The Keith from Defender of the Universe compared to the Keith of Legendary Defender is like a stick in the mud. But I still like him. He's responsible and dedicated, and he's just somebody you'd want in your corner. He did. His personality went away. It was awful. And it was season 8. Season 8 Keith was like an automaton. Anyway, the Keith that we meet in season 1 is very bitter because we see him, his introduction is beating the crap out of Iverson and 2 other people from the garrison to rescue Shiro. His first word on the screen is Shiro's name. And to have this is a character who has lived by himself for a year, who has been confused why he's being drawn in different directions, why he's being forced by something inside of him to search for something he doesn't even know exists. And he's found cave drawings, and he feels something. He has a feeling about something in the middle of the desert. He doesn't know what it is. This is a person who has had everything taken away from him. His parents, his home, his future, his mentor, everything. He has lost everything. And still, he persists. And he's determined. And if someone tells him he can't do something, he lashes back and says, "Yes, I can. Don't stand in my way." And that's what we see in the first season. And that's what we kind of see in the second season, but it's being tempered more and more by Shiro. And having him in the second season discover who he is to a certain extent, why he has this temper, why he has this determination. Somebody wrote earlier today that in season 8, when Zarkon is talking to Keith, Zarkon says, "You're stubborn, just like all Galra." And it's like, Galra aren't stubborn. Galra are arrogant. They're determined. They're confident. They're not stubborn. They're self-assured. Keith is all of those and stubborn. And Shiro says it correctly. Keith gets that from his dad, because his dad was stubborn. His dad didn't listen to people tell him that he couldn't do things, and he ended up dying for that. He left his only child because he was trying to help somebody. So that's important. Um, I know it's 10 minutes to 1. Okay, so Shiro. So I'm also seeing things that say they wanted to get rid of Shiro. Okay. Joaquin is the last person in the world who wants to get rid of Shiro. Okay? Because he's a Shiro stan. He loves Shiro. However, Joaquin's support is now gone. And so the people who are coming in and writing season 7 and really season 8, from my opinion, do not understand these characters the way the earlier writing teams did. And I don't know if that was purposeful. I think it was. I think DreamWorks panicked when they found out that you had a character who was almost a main character who was gay on the show and who had a close relationship to another character of the same sex. And I think the people who came in and wrote these episodes, and Josh Hamilton may have been one of them, were told these two are not going to interact with each other. One of them is the leader of Voltron, and the other one is the leader of Atlas. They are separate. We have a separation in the beginning of the season where Voltron goes one way and Atlas goes another way. Voltron goes after Unnerva and Atlas goes to talk to more coalition members to basically get backup. Remember? Okay. And then we don't see Shiro for like 2 episodes at all because Atlas is gone. And then the next time you see Shiro and Atlas, they're at the White Hole and they have a couple of coalition people with them and that's it. It's like, where is everybody else? You were gone for weeks. You know, it's like, what the hell is going on here? So we had that issue. I very much strongly think that they were instructed to firmly put him in the background. And I don't think that made Joaquin very happy. Didn't make the rest of us very happy either. It took the dynamic away. Your dynamic is that the whole show has been about teamwork, about building a team, about working together for a common goal. And in season 8, they didn't do that. You had Allura separate from the team and take the entity into her own person to get a handle up on Unnerva, which tells people, of course, and all that does is tell people, do whatever you have to do, no matter what, to get the end result. And that's not the way teamwork works. It isn't. They took away. We jump back a couple seasons. When Keith left at the beginning of season 4, Allura lost her voice of her conscience, because I really think that Keith was her voice of reason. He was her balance when Shiro wasn't there. And when Shiro was there, it was a three-way balance between the three of them. A lot of people think, oh, well, Allura's the one who called the shots, and then she was demoted into being a paladin. She wasn't demoted. It wasn't a demotion. It was a lateral move from... Well, yes and no, because Keith really was leaning on Lance to help him be the leader, because Shiro had been the leader, and then now Shiro was gone. So Keith was having to depend on Lance, be my right hand, help me make these decisions, because his first couple decisions they stunk to high heaven. And then, but at the same time, so he's trying to learn a new position. And I think the reason that he leaned so much on Lance is that he knew that Allura was also learning a new position. And I think he was afraid to give her too much. Give her too much to think about. It was like, okay, you are the Blue Lion. Learn the Blue Lion. Learn it. Okay? I mean, that's how I felt with that. No, you're right. There isn't anything in the narrative.
We see him literally snapping at her a few times when she's not quite getting the grasp of the lion.
Well, he snapped at everybody. I mean, one of the first things he did was yell at Lance, because Lance had to scratch red.
Right on that. But what I'm trying to say is, there was we started
No, we don't. Well, until Shiro comes back, and you have to also understand that Keith is so lost without Shiro. We don't know how long he looked for Shiro. Yes, he does. No, I loved Hole in the Sky. Hole in the Sky was one of my favorite episodes.
because we see how these two leaders are bonding in their new positions.
And they interact with each other, right? Right. Well, and you remember when they hadn't, when they hadn't, when Black hadn't chosen Keith, and the first time they're like, okay, we have to replace him, and he immediately, flares up and says, nobody can replace Shiro. Nobody can replace him. And they have that whole gazing at the navel scene, right? And but later, when you have here's Keith standing up looking at Black, And Lance comes up and says, hey man, he was a hero and I always looked up to him. And then Pidge and her, he was a hero in my house, and Hunk and his, he taught me everything I know to be a pilot. Not that, I know. But anyway, the thing is that all three of those had to do with what Shiro did for them. What he did for them. He taught them. He was a role model. He was a hero. Okay? And then Allura, and that's when, Keith looks at Lance, and Lance is like, hey, he would want us to move on. And Keith just looks at him like, dude, you have no idea. And then Allura says, I understand. I understand about replacing somebody who is irreplaceable. And the look on Keith's face, because he's looking at Lance like, really? And then he looks at Allura and it's like, you understand this. She understands how much Shiro meant to him, and not just as a hero or a teacher or a pilot. This was somebody who believed in him. And that was huge for Keith. This was somebody he was not going to give up on. And he felt that taking his place in Black was giving up. And Allura was like, it's not giving up. When she ends up in blue and she comes out and she's in the pink armor and she's talking to Lance about the pink armor and about how they wear this color to remember their fallen warriors. And she specifically says, this is for the people who died and for Shiro. And I was just like, oh. Because she gets it. She understands. It's not the teacher. It's not the hero. It's not the pilot. It's what's inside. It's more than that. And that was more than that to Keith. And it was more than that to Allura. And she knew that Keith had a lot on his plate. Had a whole lot on his plate. Lance, on the other hand, with his attitude to begin with, which he got over. I was very happy to see that. When that whole where Keith is like, man, I screwed up, and he's like, yeah, you did, but we're gonna fix it. That was impressive to me. That was Lance not rubbing it in Keith's face and saying, yeah, we got to fix this. And I think that's another reason why Keith depended on him so much, because he was his foil. He was his support. He was still learning. And then when Shiro came back and Black wouldn't accept him, I think that was a blow. And I don't think Shiro knew how to handle that either, because he kind of really closed himself off, especially from Keith. He closed himself off from Keith. And I'm not sure how much he closed himself off from Allura, but I do know that he closed himself off from Keith. Yes, they did, which they've never had before. Yeah. Right. Right. Which is what happened in season 8. yeah. Are you kidding? Mr. Ladies Man wants the parade. I mean, come on. Oh my God. I'm so glad he grew out of that.
And yeah, if he does grow out of that, but I don't think it should have been. It should have been growing out of that to get the prize anyway.
Right.
It should have been growing out of that to
Infatuation? No.
I don't see enough of that kind of national development.
Right.
And I mean, it would have been a super fresh change of pace to have him suddenly fall for somebody who's not his MO, who's not what he goes for, which would have been Paige.
Right.
I
I
feel like
I agree with you. And if you look at it, and I'm going to put my plants glasses on now, but if you look at her reaction to Lance, Pidge's reaction, Katie's, as time goes on, she's really poking fun at him, but kind of at her own expense, because she knows that he has an infatuation for Allura. And then when Lotor comes along and Allura is attracted to Lotor, Lance goes into a funk. And Pidge picks on him. But I think she picks on him because she knows how he feels. She knows how he feels. I mean, you get, what was the thing with the robot? And Hunk says, oh yeah, she talks about you all the time. And Lance is like, she does? And Lance is like, or Hunk's like, oh yes, oh Lance, he's so handsome. And then Pidge backhands him with the robot arm. Oops. And whenever he's talking about the ladies, she gets this look on her face like, oh, he's talking about that again. You know, that's,
episode 1, season 3,
yeah.
when he showed her the picture on his phone, he was rejected
Yes.
I was like,
Yes. 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 I know. Plants glasses, I'm telling you. Um, yeah. And he wasn't. And he turns out to not. Well, she said a lot of things that didn't turn out in season 8. How about, and I'm going to go back to Keith. How about this is a relationship that he's not going to be able to let go his entire life with Shiro. That relationship, what happened to it? It went away. Shiro is the one who broke his promise. I will always believe in you. I will always believe in you. But you've got to believe in yourself. I will always be here for you. And he wasn't. And he didn't. Of all of the characters on the show, the one that I hurt the most for is Keith. And I've said this before, and I'll record it so you can hear it again. Keith's lesson is that you can overcome everything that the universe can throw at you. Your loss of your parents, the loss of your home, the loss of your school, the loss of your career, the loss of your friends. You can overcome all of that. You can go across the universe to protect or to save the thing that's most important to you in your whole life. And at the end of the day, you're still disappointed. That's a horrible lesson. That's not a lesson. And everybody's like, oh, well, that's life. It's like, that sucks.
That's not life. I'm not going to escape into a series that ultimately is going to be the freaking lesson I have for the rest.
Right.
It makes no sense for you to build a story that it's based on it. It's based on it's hope. So you can give us a hopeless ending.
Right. And they did, and that's what we saw. We saw that teamwork, that drive, that goal for the first 6 seasons of the show, because of the writing staff, because of the lack of meddling from the IP, from the licensee. We saw that. We saw that growth. We saw that people working together can do amazing things. And we saw that in season 7 as well, where they worked together to get home. And then they worked together to kick the Galra off Earth, to beat them. We didn't see that in season 8. It was disjointed. It wasn't there. And you didn't have that sense of trying to fix a problem, and that cooperation. They were going in separate directions, all of them. And it didn't gel. It was bad. We ended on a note that I still don't understand. It's like, how can you do this? How can you make this group of people who are found family, who are friends, who've been in each other's heads, who've worked together to drive the most powerful weapon in the universe, and reduce them to high school reunions every 5 years so they can eat dinner under the statue of their dead friend? How could you do that? How can you do that? And then to add insult to injury, to add those stills in that epilogue. And I'm not even talking about the ship. I'm talking about the fact that you have somebody who's the best pilot of their generation, who's trained in hand-to-hand combat, who, again, has overcome great odds to do everything that he possibly can to help other people. And now what is he doing? He's handing out food goo. He's being a UN soldier.
Everything I think was worse than I feel like, honestly, with honestly, was that
You said no. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's just him. And then you look at Lance. Lance is 20 years old. Lance is working on his family farm. All Lance ever wanted to do was fly. He wanted to be a fighter pilot. He wanted to be the fighter pilot. He wanted to be the ninja sharpshooter. He wanted to be the ladies' man. He wanted to win everything. He wanted to be on top of the world. Now he's milking cows on his family farm on Earth by himself. That's wrong. That teaches you no matter what you can do, no matter what you do, you're still going to be stuck in the same spot that you started for the rest of your life. He's 20 years old, rest of his life. You can't tell me that was a lesson that they intended to teach us when they brought Shiro back from Kerberos in an escape pod. You can't tell me that. Again, I'm not even talking about ship. I'm just talking about characters. Yes. It's because Lance is doing loop-de-loops. Yeah, it is. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about Shiro. Let's talk about how, and again, you've heard this before, so I'm going to just record it again. We're talking about somebody who was diagnosed with a muscular degenerative disease in his teens, but still went to the garrison, went through the training, broke every record he came across, fell in love with, and this is problematic to me too. Adam is taller than Shiro is, and he's older than Shiro is, and he's a teacher at the academy. At what point, and please, and I'm going to remind your listeners, remind your listeners that we have had the same argument with Shiro being the elder of a pair of mentor / mentee, the same way with Keith, and how people said, oh, well, he's a pedophile because he was interested in a minor when he wasn't. He's older. He should know better. He was his teacher. That's not legal. Keith is apparently, 8. Right? The thing is that if you back up a little bit, Adam probably was in the same predicament because Adam is older than Shiro is. Adam was a teacher at the garrison. He was also in love with him. He was his flight partner, for crying out loud. So okay, so you have Shiro, who's broken all these records. He's the youngest pilot in the fastest lunar orbit. That's when we meet him, is when he's come to Keith's school to recruit kids for the garrison. So he's probably 20 or 21 years old, where Keith is probably 14. And Keith is bored, looks out the window. Shiro is like, okay, this is one kid. This is going to be a hard nut to crack, right? But he cracks him in that simulator. And then he tells him, after he steals his car and gets him out, you have a second chance. Because I think Shiro sees a lot of himself in Keith. I think he does. But that's neither here nor there. So, Shiro. Okay. Shiro's been chosen to go to Kerberos. He fights to go. He breaks up with his love to leave him behind to follow his dreams. He wants to go because he knows he doesn't have a whole lot of time. He has a time limit because of the degenerative disease. Fights to go to Kerberos. Gets abducted. Fights to come home. Fights to stay alive. Fights to protect other people in his crew. Can you imagine Matt? Can you imagine Matt? Matt is, I'm going to die. I'm going to die. I'm never going to survive this. And then Shiro attacks him and says, take care of your dad. And then he never sees him again. Can you imagine what's going through Matt's head? Can you imagine the guilt in him to think that this person who he spent months with in space just sacrificed himself so that Matt could live? That's huge. So you have Shiro, who has fought to stay alive, who has had his arm taken from him, who has had his body scarred, who escapes with help, comes back to Earth, and then leaves again because something bigger is calling him. And it's the Blue Lion, and Keith, and Lance, and Hunk, and Pidge. But he has fought every step of the way. And he's trying to keep everybody else alive. Aliens that abducted my team once, I'm not going to let it happen again. He says that in his vlog. Curon says that in his vlog. I'm going to do everything I can to make sure everybody gets home alive, no matter what it takes. Whatever it takes. You can't tell me that that's somebody who doesn't, oh God, so we have Shiro, who is killed in battle that we don't know, disappears. And then we have a clone who has all of his memories, appears, fights with Allura, fights with Keith. Keith leaves. Shiro takes over Black again, takes over control of Voltron. Where am I going with this? I don't know what to say. He has done so much and held people together, held the group together. And then we start to see anomalies. He's not in the mindscape. He argues with Allura, which he hasn't done before. And again, he argues with Keith, which he also hasn't done before. He starts to realize that when... What episode was it? The White Lion. Okay. So they're at the White Hole, and there's no power to the castle. And he's got to get Lance out of there because Lance is driving everybody crazy because Lance is so fixated on, oh my God, what are they doing? What are they doing? And it's, everything's Allura. And Pidge, I'm surprised Pidge didn't drop kick Lance over the edge of the balcony. Will you please get rid of him now? And for him and for Shiro to say to Lance, I don't feel like myself. That was like, oh shit. Oh my God. That was big. That was big. And then to lose control of himself. That we see several times. And then the big one after Lotor and Allura come back out of the quintessence field. and Honerva takes over. Oh my God. Ugh. I'm curious to see what the various stages of the experiment are, because we hear stage 1 is complete, stage 2 is complete. Go to stage 3, go to stage 4. I want to know what those are. I want to know why when she was fighting the White Lion, the Guardian at Oriond, why he was so affected. Why was Curon so affected by what was going on with Hagar? Was she that tied into him? Because at that point, I don't think she was. Do you follow me?
Yeah.
I don't know. And then to have the line where your interaction with the Red Paladin runs deeper than the others. I was like, oh my God, what are they going to do? Do I think that Curon led Keith to the cloning facility on purpose to get rid of the rest of the clones? Maybe. Because he said, neither of us are leaving here. He was going to die. And he was going to kill Keith.
I think what it ended up being was that he,
I agree because when he hits, there's one of them that he hits. He hits the box, the control box for it, and it turns off. And then 2 more turn off, and 2 more turn off. It, yeah. Kill the clones. Yeah, I think Curon's, they talk about, oh, well, lead him away. And to have him go to the cloning facility, though, I think that was Shiro fighting Honerva. I don't know. I don't think so. I think she. Yeah, but I don't think she aimed him at the cloning facility. Yeah, but at the same time, if it was the case, if it wasn't the case, then I think Curon would have attacked Keith as soon as they landed, not led him into the facility. I don't know either.
That's the thing, is it's like that.
Well, I really don't think that it was her intention to have him go to that facility at all. And I think well,
Done more than all the other clones. I believe it. And people were just being able to infiltrate everything. With the whole,
yeah, we're going to agree to disagree on that. The thing is that the thing that got him out of her control was Keith telling him that he loved him. And that broke him out. Not the line before, not the "you're my brother," but the "I love you." That's what knocked him out of that. And I know that's all, Winter Soldier, Joaquin DeSantos magic going on. But there's a reason that episode is nominated for Best Animation Episode of the Year for 2018. And that voting is going on right now for this. Yes, it is. I'll send you the link. I'll send you the link. I think Best Supporting Character, I think, is actually Lotor. So you've got like Best Series and Best Episode. Black Paladins, The Black Paladins is one of the episodes that's up for this award. So yeah, I mean, that started like 2 days ago. I'll have to send it to you. So Shiro is dead already. And I believe the life force, the quintessence of Kuran, was exhausted when his arm was basically transformed into a cannon. Because where are you getting the energy to fire something like that? I think really, and when he said neither one of us are leaving, I think it was basically I'm going to commit suicide and take you with me. And I think that's what. So you get people that are complaining about, Allura overwrote Kuran. He didn't deserve that. Kuran was dying. His and even Keith said he's barely hanging on. His life energy was gone. Barely alive. And so for Allura to go over and draw Shiro's essence out of Black and put him back into that clone body was basically reinfusing him. I mean, look at his hair. Reinfusing him with quintessence. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yeah, I know. So was I. Remember? We did that quite a few times. And I still saw that a bit in season 7. Although it was peppered. Yeah. It was fragmented. It was fragmented in season 7. There were so many. I have to link you. And I actually probably need to stop this recording and start it again because we're at 1 hour and 9 minutes right now. So hold on. I do. I have to be at work in 5 hours. Hold on.